Welcome to today's conversation podcast. Today I'm privileged to host the person I still call leader of the opposition in Parliament, Honorable Brian Mundubile, MP, is our MP for Mporokoso. We are discussing the concerns around Parliament. So I'd like to welcome you to this program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mwamba. It's nice to be back on this program.
Article 63(2) of our Constitution, which provides for the powers of the National Assembly and what it does, says, number one, that we shall ensure equity, you shall ensure equity in the distribution of national resources amongst the people of Zambia, that you will ensure appropriating funds for expenditure of state organs, state institutions, provincial administration, local authorities, and other government agencies. It also gives you powers to scrutinize public expenditure, including sensitive institutions like defense, constitutional and special bodies. It also gives you powers to approve public debt before it is contracted, and you are supposed to approve international agreements, international treaties, and those that Zambia accedes to and ratifies to. There's been a broad concern around the operation of our parliament in the last 2.5 years. I know you parliamentarians don't discuss yourselves, but we have to put you on the spot. Let's discuss Parliament. Generally, what are your views?
Thank you, Ambassador Mwamba. I think, first of all, we need to look at what Parliament is. A Parliament, or the legislature, as it is sometimes called, is one of the three branches of government. And the doctrine of separation of powers, states that there should be some independence. There should be some independence among these branches of government. You're reading Article 62. So specifically, when you look at the mandate of Parliament, you can put it under 4 headings. It's for representation, making of laws, which is legislation, budgeting, and also checks and balances. So when you're scrutinizing the function of Parliament, you must bring it under those 4 headings. For instance, when you talk about budgeting, I think people have no serious issues regarding that. Because the budget is presented to Parliament and debated to some extent. But as a parliamentarian myself, I'll tell you that what happens there is that what the executive presents pretty much is what is approved. The role of members of Parliament to debate, yes, but nothing really changes. So what has happened in other jurisdictions, they've created what they call the budget office. And they have what is called a sector budget process. The actual formulation of the budget is done at Parliament through these sector committees, meaning that those committees actually have power. They can move money from one sector to the other, increase in one sector and reduce in the other. Then it begins to make sense when you talk about budgeting, because then, there's wide participation. Members of Parliament, as representatives of the people, actually have a lot of time to scrutinize the budget and be able to distribute resources, in areas of need. As the situation stands, the practical aspects are that there's very limited time on the floor of the House for members of Parliament to scrutinize. 1 or 2 amendments are proposed, but it's not effective. I've been on benchmarking tours. I went to Uganda. We've been to Kenya regarding this very aspect of budget office.
Yeah.
So to make Parliament effective, insofar as budgeting, the budgeting function is concerned, we are looking forward to that transformation. As a matter of fact, we had proposed to start that with the 2024 budget. Minister of Finance came and appealed that they were not ready.
What should be the role of the budget office under Parliament?
What actually happens is that the Minister of Finance proposes its budget. It's broken down to sectors and brought to committees at Parliament. And they begin to scrutinize the budget at committee level.
Yes.
The time is coming on the floor of the House, it would have been sufficiently interrogated. Yeah, so if you see what happens now, the yellow book is given to us. We do our part to debate. More money should have been removed from the president's travel and put there and so on. Not much. The input is not much. You debate for your 7 minutes.
Yeah.
At the end, the minister comes up and wraps up debate. If there are serious issues, you vote, and that is the end.
Yeah.
But for effectiveness, if you take it down to committee, the committees will debate for months on end before the budget is brought into plenary, where a limited time is allocated.
How are those jurisdictions that are dealing with the budget in that manner? How is it working? Because there's so much confidentiality around our budget that you are asking the executive to leak a budget to you months before it's presented. How do you balance the interest of confidentiality, secrecy that's around the budget, and especially that you've done those benchmarking trips?
Well, basically, these are national resources. There should be nothing secretive about it. For instance, if you're talking about the budget on agriculture, and you give it to a committee on agriculture, they'll be looking at the challenges in the agricultural sector. Let's take, for instance, that the current budget was scrutinized in that committee. So that committee probably would have been saying, how do we ensure that our farmers don't get fertilizer in meadows?
Yeah.
Okay, how do we ensure that the quantum of support to a farmer is such that after 2 years they will be on their feet and they can be on their own? That's what that committee will be doing. Yeah. So by the time they propose a figure as a component of the overall budget and is brought to the plenary, a lot of work could have been done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's just delve directly to the concerns around Parliament. Like you said, the legislature is very key component in our democracy. Other than the oversight role that you play and providing checks and balances to our government, there is a feeling in the country that you, the opposition, do not have a voice in that Parliament. When you try to articulate it, express it, it is suppressed. There have been happenings, the suspensions, the expulsions that have happened in Parliament. There have been running battles between especially opposition members of Parliament and the Speaker. These are genuine concerns because our people trust that when we go to an election, they elect you MPs, you will do that job and you do it effectively.
Yes, Ambassador. Like I said earlier, it's the separation of powers is a fundamental principle to democratic governance. And when the branches of government, say legislature and the executive, become unified, or the other becomes dominant over the other, it can have significant implications. And I think that's what we are experiencing today. I'm going to give you practical examples so that the viewers can relate. When Honorable Msokotwane came to Parliament on 30th of October 2021 and proposed that he was going to give some concessions to the mining sector. That included the making of mineral tax deductible. We objected. We rose and debated to say this was going to have dire consequences, to include the shortage of forex on the market. The exchange rates are going to go up, inflation is going to go high. Go to the Hansard now, you're going to find those debates. Along the way, presiding officers decided to curtail those debates because maybe those particular debates were not in the best interest of presiding officers at the time. We actually started our exchanges then because we felt very strongly about against this measure. We went to the extent of saying it's possible that you can you can legislate corruption. You can come up with policies that facilitate corruption. And we were saying we have to broadly look at the definition of corruption. This is when we're arguing the policies that the minister was bringing on the floor of the House. We said, look, corruption may not necessarily be the giving or taking of bribes, but it covers decisions, policies that are made in favor of private capital at the expense of public interest. And this may cover legislation, policy, and administration. So we picked out this particular policy measure to say the minister is saying this measure that is introducing to allow mineral tax to be deductible will result in loss of revenue to government of up to 3 billion plus. And we're saying the new government said they found empty coffers. But how can they give this 3 billion? We went further to interrogate. We said, okay, in the event that the mining houses that are promising to ramp up production, in the event that they don't, what sanction is there? And the minister said there was no sanction. We said, oh, now that is very risky. Why don't we create milestones year by year? And then the moment they achieve one milestone, they qualify for some incentive. You can't give front-load incentives and then begin to wait for your fate. The minister could not answer. The reason I'm giving this example was what we're experiencing today, Ambassador Mwamba, we could foresee it in 2021.
In fact, just speaking on that, the losses to this country are remarkable. If you look at the earnings from the mining sector, our tax revenue, in 2020 was $1.1 billion. Even in, this was a COVID era, 2021, a similar amount, $1 billion. Now, when you look at our earnings from the mines, it's down to around $200-300 million. That single measure has brought drastic losses to our country.
And the president has come up to say the opposition are not giving alternative policies. The alternative policy to this was don't do it. Okay? That was alternative policy. We didn't need to craft a very lengthy alternative policy. We simply said create a relationship with the mines. Ask them to achieve certain milestones before they qualify for these incentives. That was ignored. In the same budget, in the same year, Minister of Agriculture told us that they were exporting maize to Congo. Members of Parliament rose, to take up their rightful role in providing checks and balances, and said you cannot continue exporting maize. This is going to affect our food security. So what we had on the floor of the House were presiding officers coming in to say, oh, that debate you're bringing about is a tedious repetition. It has been said before. To the extent where we could hear unfortunate statements from presiding officers that what the minister says is right. Whatever the minister says is right. Now, that was the beginning.
So your first red flag about the presidium, about the speaker and her team came from then on?
From 2021.
Yeah.
If you
Because they
remember,
appear to have been aiding the executive
the first
instead
protest,
of allowing
yes.
free debate.
Our first parliamentary vote happened in December of 2021, because then we realized that presiding officers may not have fully appreciated their roles as umpires. In Commonwealth Parliament, a speaker is blind. A speaker is also deaf. A speaker just sits there. A speaker should be moved. If one member feels there's a member from the opposition that is making noise or whose conduct is unparliamentary, they are to rise to their feet on a point of order and bring to the attention of the speaker that particular conduct. It's only then that the speaker now comes up to make a ruling. Okay, we're witnessing it for the first time, where the speaker's eyes are wide open, and the
speaker is not deaf.
The hearing is amplified. It has never happened. So that is what begins to create problems for Parliament, because the presiding officers begin to stretch, in other frontiers where they shouldn't. Okay, and especially when they do it when they don't do it in an impartial manner. So the point there is the challenges we face today, Ambassador Mwamba. Parliament is there to blame. Had Parliament taken up their rightful position, Honorable Mtolo Piri would not have exported 1.5 million tons of maize. The price of mealie meal today would still have been at 120, 150. Would have had enough maize. If Honorable Msokotwane, if members of Parliament were allowed to take on Honorable Msokotwane, we were going to persuade him to reverse the policies in the mining sector. The exchange rates would have been below 20 kwacha today. And this is very serious. I mean, there's no exaggeration about it, because we saw all these things. So we realized then that there was a very big problem, because there was no parliamentary democracy. You see, when you have a centralized system, the executive and the legislature are unified. Okay, you begin to have significant implications, some of which we're witnessing today. Okay, because there's no check.
There appears to be an agreement of mind between the executive and Parliament. I think, had another big issue and setback when 9 MPs were lost their seats in the High Court. And I think a point of order was brought to Parliament, and the Speaker proceeded to nullify those seats. Yet there were appeal processes in motion, and our Constitution is very clear. An MP remains an MP until the court process is exhausted. You raised your concerns, you walked out, and you were not listened to. I'm glad that the Constitutional Court came around and supported the decision of the MPs, and they were finally back in Parliament, affirming what you had raised. Speak to the walkouts, because sometimes the ruling party portrays you as just being irresponsible, that you are just being petty by walking out as a form of protest against the decision of the Speaker.
Yeah, first of all, when we look at the matter concerning the 9 MPs, there was already a ruling. There was a judgment against Speaker Matibini in the Chimbakambwili case. Yeah, so when the current Speaker acted in the manner that she did against the 9 speakers, the 9 MPs, we took it as deliberate.
Yeah.
It was because you have a government in power that is over-dominant and dominating the legislature. We have no doubt. So that was just a deliberate act to try and disorient the opposition. And in that short period, of course, they did, because they got us angry and we were fighting for the return of our colleagues. Yeah, so I think from the beginning, we've had a parliament that is compromised, a parliament that is biased. Ambassador Mwamba, if you went on the street today
Yeah.
to just interview ordinary people, what they think about Parliament, they will give you these views that I'm giving you here.
Yeah.
Go on their Facebook page and see what people say. Yeah, but what is very clear is that they're not ready to change. Yeah, because remember, they are doing it on behalf of the executive. Yeah, President Hakainde Hichilema and his government, are coming, they apply so much pressure on the legislature. Yeah, so there are a number of wrong things that are going on there that I don't agree with. Yeah, because I've been in Parliament, this is my 7th year. There are other problems that may not be immediately obvious, to many people. When you look at the functions of Parliament, for instance, let's look at checks and balances.
Yeah.
To be able to provide checks and balances, there are certain accountability committees
Yes.
that ordinarily should be chaired by the opposition. But in this government and in this Parliament, they're actually chaired. Some of them are chaired by the people, MPs from the UPND.
Breaking tradition.
Yes. How are they going to provide checks upon themselves? Okay. It also takes me to another item within that context. The selection of committees. We argued so many times over as to who should recommend members of Parliament to committees. Ambassador Mwamba, you've been a member of Central Committee. You've seen how the adoption process is conducted. When we are looking at who is going to be in that Parliament, we balance skills, expertise, and capabilities. Yeah, because you are campaigning to form government. You already begin to place pieces. You want to know who is likely to be the Minister of Tourism. So even in the adoption process, you are looking at capacity in Parliament.
Yeah.
Now, your members have come to Parliament. In these jurisdictions where we have been, the whips, even under Speaker Matibini, I was the government chief whip, the whips would propose names of members, to various committees. The Standing Orders Committee basically came in, made 1 or 2 changes and ratified. We have a situation now where the names are just brought. Madam Speaker, assisted by, maybe a second Deputy Speaker, irregularly for that matter. They brought names. I remember in one meeting, I argued, I said, Honorable George Chisanga, who has been at the bar for 30 years, you want him to belong to the Youth and Sport Committee? You get my point. You get Mutotwe Kafwaya, okay? A seasoned accountant, and he must go to gender. Are you with me? What are you trying to do? So those are red flags. We realize that the leadership of that
the
Parliament,
misallocation of resources,
exactly, so that you have a weak Parliament, that cannot provide checks and balances, because you are supposed to be interested in who is in the Public Accounts Committee, who is in Government Assurances Committee, who is in parastatus, because they're talking about accountability committees. So there's been this compromise, and the chairpersons of committees, especially those committees that travel, are chaired by UPND, dominated by UPND. The accountability committees are chaired by UPND. So the committee system has totally collapsed. The weak debates, the weak reports that are coming on the floor of the House is because the committee system collapsed. If we had a strong...
Like you are saying, they can't check themselves.
They can't check themselves. You can't,
They can only compromise.
So it's a well-structured approach that they've had. You will have a collapsed Auditor General's office. Okay? The committees at Parliament are compromised. When they talk about corruption, they talk about it confidently. Because the entire system has been compromised. So I think we need to get back to a position where we have a strong Parliament, where parliamentarians are going to provide checks and balances. And very quickly, I want the Zambian people to know that your millimil is at 450 because your MPs were never given a chance to stop Mutolo Piri from exporting. The issue of Indeni, we tried to stop the Minister of Energy. Don't close Indeni just yet.
Yeah.
Let's do a study and understand. We know that Indeni needs some investment in hydrocrackers and other improvements to be able to deal with other forms of crude. But in the meantime, let's utilize the pipeline and Indeni so that we have a buffer for at least 90 days. If you're going to bring in finished products, it's going to be very sensitive to changes in the two fundamentals, being exchange rates and oil prices.
Yeah.
We never listen to. And today, even when Parliament was saying the ministers are always right, Emmanuel, the question that I have today is that were they indeed right?
No.
Was Mutolo right? Was the Minister of Energy right? Was the Minister of Finance right? Was the Minister of Mines right?
No.
Now, having established that a weak parliamentary system can cause a lot of
economic havoc,
like they've done now. So for me, as leader of opposition, legally elected in the Zambian parliament, I wish to take this opportunity, Comrade Mwamba, to tender an apology to the Zambian people, unreservedly, for being part of a parliament that failed to stand in the gap to save the lives of the millions of the Zambian people. I know that the members of parliament that I represent from the opposition did their part to try and intervene in the situation. Unfortunately, a compromised parliamentary system could not allow them.
So it's literally a weak link.
A very weak link. They were humiliated many a time, commanded to sit down like they're little children. When they were there to represent the people. But now that we have seen what the crisis they were trying to avert, I pray that the presiding officers in the Zambian parliament should now have a different approach to how they are going to take the contestation coming from the opposition. Because when you look at constitutional democracy, Comrade Mwamba, it's basically two things. It's representation and contestation. Two principal aspects.
And they both seem to be taken away.
They seem to be taken away. But maybe at the time the presiding officers were doing what they were doing, they did not emphasize what was going to happen. Now we are here now. We are here now because of Parliament. We are here now because the opposition members of Parliament cannot speak freely. Just as I wind up, let's say the presiding officers defended themselves to say that our standing orders say A, B, C, D. The question is, are we going to hang on to technicality at the expense of functionality? That's a question. The Zambian Constitution, in Article 118, says at the expense of justice, you can abandon technicalities and dispense justice.
So justice is delivered.
So for Parliament, we must ask ourselves, because those standing orders are crafted by ourselves. And sometimes not everybody agrees with those standing orders. So is Parliament discharging its functions, its mandate according to the Constitution? Is it providing checks and balances? Let's forget about the technicalities. Are the committees functioning as they should?
In fact, that brings me to another point, Honorable Mundubile. The issue of proxy voting. We saw in the press last week that there's a consideration of introducing proxy voting in this parliament. Now, this is a vote cast by, for example, you on behalf of another who's absent. Should our parliamentary democracy, in the manner that we know it, in the Commonwealth and in Zambia, have you parliamentarian vote on a matter through a proxy? Should a proxy vote for you, for example, on the constitutional issue? What is the spirit behind this? What is the purpose of this proposal? Isn't this harmful to the independence of our parliament?
Yes, it's a major source of concern. And as parliamentarians, we were very suspicious. I think it has come at a time when there's been several attempts to try and bring up some constitutional amendments. There's been a lot of discussions in the background. I've been part of those discussions, and I'm a constitutional lawyer myself. I was able to guide to say one of the key elements in constitution making is consensus, public participation.
Yeah.
You know, you have what are called constitutional principles, speaking to transparency, accountability, timeliness, and all that. And our guide was that the first step is for the Minister of Justice to make a statement that there's some intention to amend the Constitution. On the floor of the House, come up with a roadmap. After coming up with a roadmap, you legislate the process in order to have trust. Because at the point of enacting the process into law, members will have an opportunity to debate.
Yeah.
And when that particular bill to do with the process is being processed, members of the public who appear before the committee as witnesses to make contributions to that process. So that eventually, when you have enacted the process into law, there is confidence and trust amongst the parties, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
We saw that the Minister of Justice at some point had started consultations on the constitutional amendments without even coming to Parliament. I think stakeholders raised concerns. They quickly folded back, and we know that there's been underground consultations. So our conclusion with this proxy voting is that the UPND government is trying to find a way of amending the Constitution, of course using the usual Mingalato style, where some MPs will be coerced. We're imagining a situation where maybe a few compromised MPs are sent to Kenya for some committee, and they give their proxy to some UPND MP who votes for them, and later, escape blame to say, no, but it was my friend who voted for me. Yeah, so I think that Zambians should stand up to resist that. We want conversation around proxy voting. When you look at electoral systems, Emmanuel, you have, for instance, a party list system. Under a party list system, MPs don't campaign in constituencies. You campaign as a political party. And when you garner votes, they're divided in proportions, and seats are allocated as such. In that case, proxy voting is easy because it was just a party that was given a vote, and MPs were placed thereafter. But for me, as an MP that was voted for by the people of Mborokoso, before I vote on any item, we consult with the party and also the people in my constituency. Now, if Honorable Mulenga Fobe is going to vote for me, at what point will he have done the consultations? In any case, Honorable Ambassador Mwamba, let's say that an argument is advanced to say, due to movements and other commitments by parliamentarians, we want to facilitate voting. It's simple. We went through the COVID period. We're voting virtually. Each one of us voted, but we voted virtually.
There was no need for a proxy voter.
No, there's no need for a proxy voter. So it's a call on the Zambians that as a parliamentarian myself, I've spoken to a number of parliamentarians, both from the UPND and the PF. They are all very suspicious, and they feel that the role of a parliamentarian is slowly being diluted. There's a reason why you must be present to debate and vote. Because look at it this way, comrade. Before you vote, a matter is subject of debate. Okay, we debate to try and persuade each other towards some thinking. Now imagine you're not present, you have not even debated, you just left somebody else to cast a vote for you. Yeah, so it's all part of what our friends are trying to do. And there's only one area of discomfort in whatever constitutional amendment that can be proposed. It's when you want to bring up clauses that are inimical to Christian interests, for instance. If you talk about gay rights, you know that many of us, Emmanuel, we are Christians. We would demonstrate on that floor.
And you reject it.
We reject it. We are ready to suffer the consequences. We will not only debate against, but also protest. Okay? That is something that we want to say, that we are ready to take up any punishment. I mean, Jesus died for all of us on the cross. What will 30-day suspension do if I'm going to save this country? There are issues to do with presidential term of office, moving it from 5 years to 7 years. Of course, President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND realized that they have not performed as they promised. And there's no miracle, Ambassador Mwamba. There's no miracle between now and 2026 that they can perform.
They are very hopeful that they will do a turnaround.
They can't.
They will turn around the economy. They will turn around the exchange rate. Food and prices will come down. How possible is that?
No, but the president, even as the situation stands, says he's doing very well. So when he says he'll turn around, what does it mean? Because right now he says he's doing well. Yeah. So for me, there's no miracle. Look at the area of infrastructure. Even if they decided now to come up with some infrastructure, they're already out of time. Okay? So wanting to extend to 7 years is a constructive admission by President Hakainde Hichilema that he has failed to perform
time allocated
within the time that has been allocated. But what is most dangerous in those proposals we are hearing is the removal of term limit. Okay, because then now a president is limited to 2 terms. The moment you remove that, you are going to start creating life presidents, especially at the rate the UPND is going, because they want to jail every opposition leader. And then the president extends his term to 7 years and removes the term limit. Okay, Emmanuel, Comrade Mwamba would have been serving a 25-year sentence, Mundubile maybe another 20, and everybody else is in jail. So there's no politician to compete with him. And then, so this must be resisted. We think that there's a reason why we put in that.
So the proxy vote, at what stage is it at? How can the public participate in its rejection?
They've got a committee of chairpersons. I think they've elected a chair of that committee, and they'll start meeting. For me, we don't even wait and appear before a compromised parliamentary system. People must speak from wherever they are. Because where we are, Emmanuel, you can't trust parliament anymore. Okay, your parliamentarians can't speak. Even for you, maybe you apply to come and appear as a witness, you will not be able to. So what we have resolved, you'll see that even for MPs who speak more to the media, because on the floor of the House you can't speak. But we also,
No, that's very cardinal, because even in the assessment of the shrinking democratic space, Parliament is key. Everyone is citing the lack of democracy and the lack of freedom of expression in Parliament as one of the reasons why we have a shrinking democratic space.
I've been to the Kenyan Parliament with Madam Speaker. And, I whispered to her, I said, Madam Speaker, if we may not be angels, but if your members back home are to be compared with the members here, then they are certainly angels. Because you see, you see parliamentary democracy, the freedom of members of parliament. The speaker's voice is heard rarely. The whips are managed in the house. That's a design. If I take you back, Comrade Mwamba, even the time under Patrick Matibini, I was government chief whip between 2019 and 2021. When there were disturbances in the house, all the speaker would do is whips, maintain order, and he continued. Now, this system of calling out members, part of the anger that you see It doesn't matter, Emmanuel. Those are elected members of parliament.
Yeah.
Well respected. If I'm going to call out your name, Honorable Emmanuel Mwamba, that is annoying already. Yeah. That's demeaning. It's a member of parliament. If you call on the government chief whip and the whips to maintain order, you immediately see whips moving. They'll go and sit with Munia Zulu.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll sit with Mlenga Fove and most likely walk outside and talk about it. In the meantime, the parliamentary business is continuing. Okay? So we have situations where members of parliament are mostly embarrassed because their names are being called out. Now, when you go to we went to the Moroccan parliament, we went to Ugandan parliament, to Ghanaian parliament, you rarely hear the speaker's voice. It's only the Zambian parliament.
Yeah.
If you had to take averages, our presiding officers speak more than members of parliament. That is the members' house. It's the members to speak. You know, members must enjoy absolute freedom in there, within the rules. So for presiding officers, like I said at the beginning, they're essentially supposed to be blind and deaf. So if there is noise on the floor of the house and the other members don't think there is noise and they are quiet, the speaker is just there. Somebody must rise and move the speaker. Okay, it doesn't happen here. You know, here it's a speaker. You know, and we spend a lot of time. If you were to allocate time, find how much time the speaker speaks to members of parliament. That is unusual. It's not supposed to be like that. Yeah, and we have, for instance, Standing Order 134, matters of urgent public importance. If you read what is in those standing orders and the rulings of the speaker, they are at variance.
I saw even just last week, I saw some MPs, a determination is made that the MPs rise on a matter of public importance. It's not public importance.